Good evening. Buenas noches. My name is David Medina. I'm Director of Multicultural Community Relations, and welcome to this event. Before we get started, I would like to give thanks to the people who made this possible. First and foremost, we have Manuel Gutierrez from the Hispanic Studies Department, and he was instrumental for bringing Arturo, Ripstein, and Paz Alicia García. No, it was his baseball player. He was instrumental in bringing them here, and he did a great job. And also we have Jose Aranda, chair of the Hispanic Studies Department, and we have Patricia from the Brooks and Consulate, and we have the Consulado General de Mexico in Houston, Hispanic Studies Department, Multicultural Community Relations, and Rice Cinema, the Department of Visual and Dramatic Arts. And one person we don't thank enough is Charles Dove. Charles Dove is the director of the Rice Media Center. Charles has always been very generous to us. Every time I ask him to have an event here, he's always responding and accommodating us. So we can't thank him enough for having this event. We're off to a great start. This is our second day for this retrospective. Last night, Arturo Ripstein gave a wonderful talk. Charles Dove, who's been here 10 years, said it was the most interesting talk he's ever heard in 10 years. And I'm sure that Paz is going to give better talk. So now that I put all this pressure on you, I want to introduce the man who's going to introduce you. He's a professor in the Hispanic Studies Department. He's also an expert in Latin American film. So please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Duno and Manuel Gutiérrez. I'm a professor in the Department of Hispanic Studies. I teach film. I have the pleasure to introduce our two distinguished guests tonight. Before doing so, let me just briefly say that the movie you're about to see right after this conversation with the director and the screenwriter, Principio y Fin, Beginning and End, is a movie that received many awards. I think the San Sebastian Prize, among many, and it's an adaptation of Mahfouz's novel, the Egyptian Nobel Prize. But before proceeding to watch this movie, we're going to have a conversation. I will give a very brief introduction about Arturo. Many of you were here yesterday. As you know, Arturo was born in Mexico City in 1943. And as you know, he's among the most recognized Latin American filmmakers in the 20th century. Ripstein made his first debut as a filmmaker in 1965 with Tiempo de Morir. And since then, he's directed about 28 films, documentaries, non-fiction, and so forth. Today, we're going to be joined by who have been called the best screenwriter of Latin America. Paz Alicia García Diego. She was born in Mexico. She studied literature in La UNAM. This is a quote from Jorge Ruffinelli. He said basically that Alicia is considered to be the most wonderful, the best screenwriter of Latin America. Her work is very polemic, very intense. Her writing is very intense. I would say that in her writing she pushes the boundaries not only of the genres she explored, but also of social conventions. You will see that in her work she explores the image of the mother, the father, the family. She also has reflections about this film. I recently had the opportunity to read a piece that was fascinating, a self-reflection about her work. One aspect that is worth mentioning about Alicia is that the way she elaborates her scripts is very meticulous. Her writing and her indications in the script are very meticulous. And I hope we'll be able to talk about that. She's been working with Arturo for 15 films? 30 films. 13, sorry, 13. And I won't delay anymore. She's also very well known for adaptations. She's done many adaptations, and I hope we can talk about that, the way she deals with adaptation. She's worked with the works of Rulfo, Mahfouz, Maupassant, Garcia Marquez, etc. Please help me welcome Arturo Ripstein and Paz Alicia García Diego. say that this is this event, as we said yesterday, is part of a book project that we're developing. So these interviews are part of that book. We're going to start with questions that we prepared for our guests, and then we'll open the mic for the public. So, Manu, would you like to start? Okay,
Just before we start, I do want to thank, of course, Luis and Manuel for having us here, and naturally the distinguished Rice University for the honor bestowed upon us in having us here, and naturally you that are sitting in front of us. Thank you.
And I have answered a small little question. My English, of course, is not as good as Arturo's, it's obviously. So, I could go with my rusty, horrible English, or I could speak in Spanish. If just one person don't understand Spanish, I can go in English, because this is America. It's English. Okay, so I'm going in English, and maybe with the help of colleagues in the table. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to start talking about how you work with the script. How do you approach the script?
Okay, I think that for us, or at least for me, the more creative moment in the screen when we are making a film is when we choose the next story, and we begin to talk why we want to make the film. Because in the why you want to make a film, if you discover the reasons, you discover the angle, the optic, the view. Upon that, you are going to organize the film. You will choose the gender, you will choose the rhythm, and the characters. Because the characters may change upon the optic you decide that the films take. So that's we do that together. And that is clear. The rest, for me at least, is just daily homework. Start there doing the stuff. I do it by myself. I put the words in, and then I give it to Arturo in panic. He's my worst judge, fearful judge, and then we discuss it, and
we do it.
And then we do it.
We were talking earlier about how technique influences actually the writing process, and vice versa. Maybe the actual script influences the technique. Could you elaborate on that with the audience, either of you, on how that collaboration actually occurs?
Well, it took me a long time to really discover how it affected me, because it's not that you know the things that you are really doing. It takes time to know the way that your path is going. But after we made the second film, when we were about to make the second film, which was a story about jealousy, very intimate, very personal story about jealousy of the past, of the thing that has happened before, which is a very specific kind of jealousy, very destructive, because you cannot change the past. You cannot stop your wife to see another guy, but you cannot change that she has a boyfriend she loves more than he loves you. So that idea was very fascinating to us. And one of the reasons we want to make the film, because jealousy is a sensation, is a feeling that begins and ends in the same place. It's auto-destructive. It's like a circle. It's like a snake eating his tail. So when Arturo began to shoot the film, I think after the second day, or the first day, he discovered that he wanted to make the film in one sequence shot, which is no cuts, no editing, just one sequence. And because that allowed to many things that he will explain, but for me that is a more easy thing to understand. It makes a round story. Every sequence of the film start and end more or less with a rhythm in the same place, making a circle. That has to make some changes in my writing, First of all, because for a sequence to make a circle and go back to the beginning, it has to be longer. You cannot make a circle in a 1 minute shot, as in the regular films that you want going to see to Cineplex. Those last 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute. I try to do shots like that last 9 minutes, or even more sometimes. So I have to make longer sequence, and in a longer sequence, in order to have some life dynamics, you are allowed to get the emotions to a higher place. You can exaggerate the emotions. You can go to the limit with the emotions and the reactions, and you can use also dialogue in the same way that you use the camera in a sequence. I begin to use long dialogues. Don't be afraid of long dialogues. Spanish is a language which is long. It's not one, what is the name in English? One-liner. Spanish is impossible one-liner. So I say, okay, and I'm speaking in Spanish, so make it long. So I have long dialogues then I try to have the taste of the camera. And I don't know.
It's your interview.
No.
Arturo, she mentioned the long sequence. In tonight's film, Principio y Fin, the concluding sequence is a long single shot.
Every scene in this film is one long single shot. Some are shorter, some are longer, but every sequence is shot in one shot. Yeah, every sequence is just one shot. It's shorter or longer, but every sequence is one shot. Of course, the last one is also one shot, a very elaborate sequence, and very complex. And it's one of the most difficult things that I have ever done.
How long is it?
It's long.
It's 11 minutes, 11 and something.
It's long. It's maybe not that long, but
It
long. Yeah, it seems forever. And as Paz said, when we discussed the sense of the story here, and Paz already knew that I like to work with one shot. That is longer things. She had to. I had to be very careful and be very intimate with her and the sense of the camera in these films. I like one-shot takes because one-shot sequences, because it's univocal. It's the point of view of the camera. It's not as if the camera is another character in the film, but it's as if the camera is the thing that watches. It's fit for emotion and for movement and for angularity within its own mechanism in these sort of films. But what is most important, it's fluent. Its fluidity is what I aim for in narrative, and I have to be very close to Paz when she's writing, so that this sense that the camera is the basic part of filmmaking. In this case, we could do a film without a screenplay, or we could do a film without actors, but not without a camera. So the fundamental piece of it's not a machine. It's a thing with wings that is watching everything from only one point of view and not many, which is the regular way of making movies and having different angles and having cuts cuts are rispid and rigid and difficult, and this is undulating, and I think it's much lovelier. Of course, that makes for different screenwriting than for a normal film.
I'd like to ask now a question about genre. Melodrama is one of the privileged genre in Mexican cinema. And in your work, you work with the
Yes.
structural melodrama, but you do something different. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. First of all, many times people said, you're making melodramas, excuse me. No, please don't be hurt, don't feel hurt. No, I do melodramas, and melodrama is a genre that I cherish. And I think it's all over the 19th century literature. Dickens has a lot of melodramas, and Anna Karenina and Madame Bovary are melodramas, and Visconti made melodramas. So it's a wonderful genre that lately has been confused with soap operas, which also are melodramas, because as in everything, there are good melodramas, bad melodramas. But I do melodramas, and I like it very much. And as Luis has been saying, yes, it's one genre that is very rooted in Mexico. And today at lunch, we were talking about this before. I was telling him, and maybe that's my impression, that we have a regime. In Mexico, we have one party just after the Mexican Revolution, for like 70, 80 years, a long, long time. And during that time, it wasn't because of repression. That's melodramatic. It wasn't because of repression, but the sense of one party, one source of information, one source of paper for the newspapers, if a very uniform point of view of reality. The result was lack of interchange of ideas. There was no public agora. Instead of political discussion, we have rumors, which is a typical way where you downgrade the information, no? For one side. And for the other side, the society went inside of the houses, inside of the cantinas for the rumor, inside of the houses for the things that grows inside of the houses, which is family. And the tensions and the problems for the society get resolved in the home. So that's the place of melodrama. So easily we were drawing Mexicans and Mexican cinema, where we draw with the melodramas. When we've been working in melodramas, we wanted to make it, but in our own specific way, which was, we not only would know the same moral rules, but immoral. I don't know if I'm saying clearly in English, not amoral, but immoral, which is assuming that there are rules and they are seen, and my characters gladly and happily do it. And they will be punished, but they are sinners. And there is kind of a redemption of the sin. Because I think, and I really think, that humankind is product of the sin. If we believe in Adam and Eve become humans when they sin. So, okay, the more human of the humankind is the sin. And that's what I want to talk about. So that changed the moral point of view. And then maybe you and I, specific backgrounds.
You tell it.
Something that makes...
No, we've said it a few times, but I'm Jewish. Paz was brought up by the nuns in the Sacred Heart. So doing films together, I always know that she puts the sin in it and I put the guilt. So it's nice to be balanced in that way. And reality, of course, is modified by that. Reality is modified by the use of this sort of camera, but by the use of melodrama. Reality is, as I think I said yesterday, it's an obstacle and a burden, and it's frightening. it's in form. It's got no form. Reality is the place where one is rejected, when one gets fat, when one grows old, when one dies, when your children stop talking to you. That's reality. And in working in film and inventing this meta-reality, which would be melodrama, is where you fall in love and you fly and you dream. So that's why we do it. Reality is always a difficulty which one has to battle with constantly, and the other is the reward of going through that, and you can just invent a new one, which is infinitely better.
Arturo and Paz, since tonight we're going to watch Principio y Fin, I was wondering if you could share with our audience a little bit about the process of adapting Guillermo Fu's novel, and then the process of getting the film done. If there's an interesting story behind it, how you made the film, per se.
I start with my part. I discovered McFus when he was already a Nobel Prize, and I would never imagine when I began reading that I would be able to pay the rights, because you're supposed that the Nobel Prize is very expensive. Happens that in case it wasn't. It was actually very, very cheap, incredibly cheap. But well, I buy a bunch of books of McFus. I've been in Cairo before, and I was fascinated by the city because it resembles so much to Mexico City. In the dust, in the noise, in the people in the street, in the kind of relations that the people get engaged. And you can see easily by the families, the weight of the family in the society, the use of the roofs that in Mexico are so much used, almost as in Cairo. And I feel very much comfortable in Cairo. That was in the 70s, before the woman began using the chador. They were using the Western style back then, so it was easy to me to correlate. And I feel very fascinated by the Cairo society. I read this novel, and the very first part, it was very familiar. It was like watching a Mexican film. The novel is fantastic. If you can, please read it. It's fantastic. And the first part was just very close, like a Mexican film of the 40s, but well done. Absolutely well done, very well crafted. And suddenly I arrived to the end that I don't want to tell you because you're going to watch the film. And I began weeping as a little baby. I haven't wept reading a book since I was 14. I mean, it's nothing that grown-ups do when we are reading. I've been weeping, and I tell Arturo, I have to do this film. And it seems that was very far away. So, help me. Help me because my English is fading.
No, actually, I had worked with my father many, many years back when I did my first film, and my father came. We gave him a couple of books. It was his birthday, so we gave him a couple of books by McFus, and he read them, and he said, "I'm going to buy them." He said, "You cannot do it," but he went to Madrid, actually, where the agent was, and he bought the books, and he came back and told us, let's do it. And I was very reticent to work with my father again. It's very complicated to work with one's father. One has to be very condescending on both sides, so it's complicated. So I didn't want to work again, but he came to me one day on a very special occasion, and he was sort of weepy, and he wept, and he went to Paz and held her and to me, and he said, "You're not going to let me die and not do a good film in my career." He's done 2 or 3 okay movies, but then he came to this, and you cannot say no to a father weeping and telling you this cavernous phrase, that is like for eternity. So we went, many vicissitudes occurred in the meantime, but we went and Paz started to do the adaptation. Adaptations are, everybody would say it's easier because you have the story, but it's infinitely more complicated than inventing.
Yeah, in this case particularly because it's the story of a family with 4 children, and was very profuse in small little histories. But it was so well done, because Macfus is a master in writing, that I cannot take anything out, because if I took the more small little incidents, the small little bridge, the building fall down completely. Why happened? Why? Destroy the film. So, and the novel is like 500 pages. It's very difficult to pass 500 pages of action in a film. Mainly, Macfus was a screenwriter. He was, at the beginning, he was a screenwriter for more than 135 films, Egyptian films, and then he became a novelist. So, he, as we screenwriters do.
So the legend says we don't.
Well, exactly, I don't read Arab, so that's what I heard. So most of his film, most of the book, is action and visual things. So things that has to go in the screen. So that makes a long film. So it take me a while to discover how to make the story compact and have everything on. And that was one of the main problems. And the other problem was, well, the difference in sexuality, and in the difference of sexuality between a Muslim country and a Catholic country, which is radically different. Remember that we have confession, so everything can be forgotten and forgiven, so we are more easygoing. Obviously, so that was the main differences.
And how about making the film in Mexico City versus Cairo? What did that add?
Well, I've never been to Cairo before, so I didn't know. I just read the book, and it was really very similar. There were many things that were recognizable in that case. Now, I don't know what the story you heard of was, because
No, I just wanted you to share a little bit about making the movie and what that was like.
Oh, it was lovely making this movie. It was, we had a wonderful cast, and for the first time I used a very young director of photography in this one, who immediately after this film, Claudio Rocha, went to Hollywood, made films there, and doing the movie was elating. It was quite a magnificent experience for me. It was technically very difficult, but it was an enormous joy to make this movie.
And you know why? Because we both of us believe very much in the telling, in the story. We really believe in the story. And when you believe in something, no matter how difficult it is, for example, the last scene, I don't want to talk about specific details because you're going to see the film. No, I don't. But no, I'm not telling anything. But we both believe very much in the story, and that gives you the strength to go on and say, okay, it's difficult. Go ahead. More or less.
Now I remember the comment I wanted you to share with us. Mahfouz saw the film.
Yes, Mahfouz saw the film, and my father went over to see Mahfouz, and he saw the film. This film had been shot many years before with a very young Omar Sharif in the main role.
48 or something like that.
40-something, yes, so an old Egyptian movie, and we did it again. And actually in Cairo there was a director that told me last year that he wanted to do it again one more time, which I think is quite reasonable to do it again.
Paul McCartney wanted to do it.
Paul
Remember?
McCartney, yes,
Paul McCartney
yes,
wanted to do it when we were
McCartney
shooting.
wanted to do
We were freeze.
the movie. And so Mahfouz saw the movie, and he said it's wonderful. I like it infinitely better than the Egyptian movie made many years back. And last year I was in the film festival in Cairo, and the president of the festival is Omar Sharif. So I was talking with him before the introductions of this. So I said I made this movie, and Mahfouz said that mine was much better than yours. So he looked at me in awe, and he said, any film is better than mine. It was a horrendous movie, which was not true. We saw it not too long ago. No subtitles, but it was quite a lovely, very solid movie. And so, you know, pleasing Mahfouz with this thing, and in the end, having my father do this movie was for me very relevant, and it did touch me.
I think we would like to now open the mic for the public if they have comments or questions. There's one right in the back.
Hello. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the collaborative process as husband and wife, and if like it's difficulties arise, or if it's comfortable, how you deal with it.
You could tell him what you said.
No.
No, it's professionally, we are more or less attuned to the same things. We more or less like the main things that go into narrative. We find that we are elated and fascinated and interested in more or less the same things. So it is not that complicated. Paz, when we first started collaborating, Paz used to give me pages of the film as it was going on, of the script as it was going on. So I read 10 pages, 20 pages, and we discussed each page very minutely. After a while, I said, you better sit down and do it all, and then I'll read it. And that's how we work now. She brings out a complete screenplay at the end, and I sit down and I take notes, and we fight a little bit over this is better or this is worse, and whoever convinces the other, it's the way it stays.
Fight is not the right word, because we depart from a very specific and very similar aesthetic point of view, so it's not a fight.
It is.
And then we have changed. For example, at the beginning, I used to look what I call fascist spaces. Enormous, huge spaces with few people, very few people, you know, a huge cabaret with 2 or 3 people. But then Arturo, which is the director, he loves claustrophilic, small little places, so I have to adjust. And now we are filming in small little places. And he don't like characters with psychology. When I met you, you don't like your films didn't have psychology.
They still do.
No, they do. They do. You don't notice. They do. They do.
See, we fight.
No,
But professionally, there's really no big deal. It's the family. It's living together that is complicated. You know, dressing the shirt and passing the coffee and things like that.
Now, the most difficult thing is that when things are okay, it's perfect for both of us. But when things go rotten, go bad,
Sharing the anguish is the worst thing that can happen when you work together and work together on the same thing, and you live together and work together and are together constantly. It's like
and nobody can comfort.
It's complicated in that sense, and sharing the anguish is the worst part of it. When every film falls on its face, and it's impossible to make, and it takes a long time to get it on its feet. So before it goes on its feet, it falls many times, and it's cancelled many times. So every time I go home and I tell her the film has been cancelled, she drops to the floor and foams at the mouth and does horrible things. And then I have to finish comforting her instead of going home to a wife that says, don't worry, it'll be okay. Have some scotch. So sharing the anguish is the horrible part of all this. The rest is fine. And when finally we're shooting, we're doing the movie, Paz is constantly visiting the set. So Paz insists that, and she's right, her work is very lonely. She's in her study and with a computer and playing some music, but totally by her alone. So when we shoot, she's constantly there, which is sometimes good. Sometimes I have a little team of 4 able-bodied men.
Say the truth.
Yeah,
No.
4 able-bodied men
Okay.
that are called Get Paz Alicia Sept. So they do at times.
I go to the set every day because of loneliness, and this is a party, of course, but mainly because screenplay is your children, is your child, is your, and many times writers accuse the director to destroy the screenplay, and it wasn't like that. So if I go every single day, and I see how they think, and the actors are the worst, and the cameraman, etc., begin to kidnap my little daughter or my little son. And I watch the process. I am accomplice to the kidnapping, so it's not so painful by the end. I am part of the gang. So no, that's when I go there.
And basically, her work in the set. Whenever I get confused, which I do eventually, when I don't know how to go about things, I ask, and people tell me, and so I learn. And I've been learning for many years now. But her main job is with the actors when they're having coffee or something. The actors constantly go to Paz and say, "There's something strange about this line. Help me understand what the word means." And they change little things, little nuances, and so that it can be fluent. As I said, fluidity is the basis. So she's there, she helps, and she is mostly welcome.
Thanks.
Question here.
Have your films ever been censored?
Oh yes. The history, the evolution of censorship is a very interesting thing. It is one of the most fascinating issues in literature and in art, and not enough, not really studied. There's very few writings about censorship. No, it's fantastic. The censorship is very interesting, and it's always been there. Somebody's saying you what you can do or what you cannot do, and what you audiences can see or not is rather fascinating on the goings and comings of these issues. No, my films have been greatly censored. I've been making movies for 46 years, so the evolution, the differences in censorship are very, very interesting. When I first started, of course, nudity was completely banned. It was impossible. And many words could not be used. Harsh words, curse words were not even dreamed of at a given point. And you had to give your script to the censorship office before you made the movie, and they gave you linings of how to go about it. And at the end, when you've done the film, they told you this: you can shoot this, you cannot shoot that. You got to do a lot of work in that sense. And at the end, when you had the film ready, you had to go to the same office to show it and see if it was allowed or if there were cuts to be made. Basically, in moral issues, there were some things that were completely forbidden, absolutely out of the question, and that was the national symbols. One couldn't talk about the president. One couldn't show the party, the name of the party. I think that the PRI, which had been ruling for many, many years, was first named in a movie in the 90s. Before that, it was never talked. One couldn't use the Mexican flag, money. So there were many issues that one couldn't talk to. And of course, you didn't even try in a few films. I remember Mario Vargas Llosa gave me the rights for La Ciudad de los Perros at a given point. We were friends. And so I went to take it over to the censorship office and saying, I want to do this film. He said, don't mess up with the army. I said, it's not the army, it's a military school for wayward kids that are, I don't know, molesting dogs, things like that. And I was not allowed, not by a long shot, to do a film in which the army was involved. I made another movie, one of my really worst movies in my life, which had to do with the army. It was forbidden. It has never been shown in Mexico due to the exquisite good taste of the army. But it could never ever be shown. I made a movie. I made a documentary in the main jail in Mexico called Lecumberri, which was banned for about 10 years and cut in the first exhibit. It's a 2-hour-long movie, and the first time it was shown in the length of 45 minutes. So I've been censored. I've been really heavily censored throughout my career. Lately, I was censored by a French producer in a film called Deep Crimson, when this guy from the extreme left, Maoist, and one of the libertarians in the world.
Libertarian, no. Libertarian here is different.
It's different, okay. One of the freedom fighters.
No, it's the same.
Shit.
One of the more leftist, liberal.
One of the, not liberal, it's different here.
No, liberal here is, Obama is liberal, no? Okay, he's liberal. Okay, liberal. Libertarian are the right wing. He's left wing.
Well, this guy was a real censor in the worst of the worst kind. I've noticed in my career that the more of the left you have, the more leftist that censorship is. It's the worst. When we changed regimes in Mexico and the opposition party, the conservative party, came into power, all my friends said that it's going to be terrible, we're going to be censored, we're not going to be able to say anything. I've never been so free to do whatever I wanted as with these regimes. So things have changed enormously then. But the worst piece of censorship now, the most cruel, the most defaming piece of censorship now is economic. When you go to a producer and you tell him, this is my project, my idea, my story, and he says, no, it's not viable, then it's not economically viable, it's not feasible to go ahead and do a film like that. That's the worst censorship you can encounter, because it's not moral, it's not political, it's nothing. You cannot discuss, you cannot argue with that, and this is the worst thing in the States, where you can say anything. I mean, the amendments allow you to say absolutely everything, but there is one censorship that pertains to all of us, and that is the economic censorship here in the States. The economic censorship is infinitely worse than the moral or the religious or the political censorship.
So, regarding you were talking about melodrama as a genre and you as a screenwriter. I was wondering, do you choose to write a melodrama, or the melodrama finds you?
Well, I was trying to say that melodrama finds me in the sense that I am Mexican, and melodrama is rooted in Mexico, no? And in that sense, it was easy that he finds me. But also, I had a vocation to be an iconoclast. I don't know how to say that in English. Iconoclast. I had a vocation to be an iconoclast. And melodrama, as I was saying, allowed me to go to the extremes. And if you are tempted to be iconoclast, extremes are very fitted. So I think we both, melodrama finds me and I find it, but we both interpose.
Don't do it.
Why not?
I don't know.
He censored me.
You mentioned before that to create or to invent? Is that because you like are trying to replicate the book so exactly, or that like how much freedom are you allowing yourself
Okay.
to?
Okay. You are not only allowed to have any freedom, you are obliged to have, not only to have freedom, but to destroy the structure of it, to destroy the novel. You have to take the novel and become a, I don't know how to say that in English, a meatball. Make the novel a meatball, a raw meatball. Because of what? It's not a choice, it's not a matter of choice. A novel is not on, it's mainly in novels, also in short stories, but mostly in novels, which are the ones that I have adapted, are all the secondary histories, the secondary histories of the known can grow forever. And I will give an example to make it more clear. In Dostoevsky's novel, Dostoevsky, Raskolnikov decided he wanted to kill the old lady, no? And next day he go and kill the old lady. In between, he go to the tavern. He know Katya. He told us the story about Katya. Then he go to Katya's house. He know the father. We know the story of the father house. Then the story of a beer or something like that. Then he go home, and there is something in between with the police. Nothing to do. Maybe the police is related to the old lady. The rest, nothing to do. Then he has a dream. He dreamed that he killed a horse, and then he dreams that the small little girls seduce him, and then he go and kill the old lady. That in a book enriches the novel, enriches. In a film, it's intolerable. Because in the film, all the secondary stories has only one single purpose: to enrich the main story and push it to the end. So there is two grammars, two syntaxes, not only different but opposites. So if you want the film to fulfill, to be good, you have to destroy the root of the novel. You have to make it yours, and you have to make it the film, have the grammar of the film. So you're allowed and obliged to do any changes that you want. If you are very loyal to the novel, for sure it will be very bad. And so that's why it's much more difficult than an original. Original, you think a story that is fitted for film.
One last question.
Meatball. I don't
There are no...
Since today's the last day that you're going to be with us, and the retrospective will continue tomorrow, would you share some small comments about the two films that are shown tomorrow, Carnaval de Sodoma and Profundo Carmesí? Anything that you might want the audience to take away from those two films?
No, they talk for themselves. They defend them. They fend for themselves. They're magnificent. Come see them.
Well, since we're closing our retrospective, we'd like to thank you so much for being with us, Matt Rice. It's been